All right, today we're diving into something that might hit pretty close to home, what it's really like to have a highly intelligent mind. We're going to break down 8 specific signs that suggest you might be thinking on a completely different wavelength than almost everyone around you.
So let me ask you this. Do you ever feel like people just don't get you? Like you're in a conversation, but it's all just skimming the surface, and small talk feels, I don't know, kind of pointless. If that sounds familiar, well, you're in exactly the right place. And it's so easy to take that feeling and turn it inward, right? To think, am I just being arrogant or antisocial? But what we're going to explore today is a totally different way of looking at it. What if it's not a personality flaw at all? What if it's just how you're wired?
Yeah, so psychology actually offers this incredible reframe. It suggests that this feeling of being disconnected, it's not a flaw. In fact, it might just be a sign that you're operating on a much higher level of thinking, processing things in a way most people don't. And that's the big idea we're going to unpack. So we're going to look at 8 specific signs. And these aren't just random opinions, okay? They're actually backed by research and psychological observations into how these highly active minds really work. Think of it as a roadmap to understanding a different kind of brain.
Okay, so first, let's talk about the internal experience. What's it actually feel like when your brain is basically on overdrive all the time?
All right, sign number 1 is something that usually gets a bad rap. You overthink everything. But hold on, we're not talking about anxiety. This is something different. It's not about worrying, it's about connecting dots that other people don't even see. There's actually a term for this, hyperconnectivity. Basically, it means your brain is like a superpowered search engine. It's not just taking in one piece of information at a time, it's instantly seeing this massive web of connections, always trying to build the bigger picture. And because of that, you just can't accept surface level answers. It's not satisfying, right? Because your mind has already jumped 10 steps ahead, coming up with a dozen questions and related ideas. You're not just looking for an answer, you're craving real depth. And this need for depth, it doesn't stop with ideas. It extends to people too. Which brings us right to sign number 2. You're constantly reading between the lines. You just have this knack for picking up on what's not being said out loud.
This is a huge part of what we call emotional intelligence. Think about it. Most people hear the words, but you're processing the tone, the body language, the little hesitations. You're trying to understand the why behind the what. And honestly, that can be a little intimidating for people who just take everything at face value.
Okay, sign number 3, this one can be tough. It's that you are your own harshest critic. That super powerful analytical mind you use to break down the world, well, it gets turned right back on yourself. The reason for this is something called metacognition, which is just a fancy way of saying you can think about your own thinking. It gives you this high definition, sometimes painfully clear view of your own mistakes and flaws. But here's the flip side. While it can be rough on your confidence, it's also the engine for personal growth. It's what allows you to learn and get better on purpose. All right, so we've talked about what's going on inside your head. Now let's shift gears and look at how all this wiring plays out in the external world, especially when it comes to social connections. It's really all about finding people who are on your frequency. Which leads us to sign number 4, you actually enjoy being alone. And this gets so misunderstood, doesn't it? People think it means you're antisocial, but that's not it at all. It's not about avoiding people, it's about needing space for your own thoughts to breathe. Yeah, this really nails it. For a mind like this, constant social interaction can be exhausting because it interrupts this incredible conversation that's already happening inside your head. Silence isn't boring. It's where you go to recharge and dive back into that amazing inner world. And because you need to protect that inner world, you run into sign number 5. You really struggle with shallow conversations. Let's be clear. It's not that you're bored by people. You're bored by conversations that go nowhere. You're dying to talk about big ideas, about how things work, about the universe, but instead you're stuck talking about the weather. It's just draining. Okay, for our last few signs, we're going to talk about communication and your core values. This is really about how all that deep internal processing actually shapes the way you talk, the way you act, and how you see the world. Sign number 6, you think before you speak. You often take a moment before you answer. In a world that's all about instant hot takes, that can seem weird. But there's a really good reason for that pause. There's a whole lot happening in that moment of silence. And this is where that misunderstanding comes in again. Other people might see that silence and think you're shy, or maybe even arrogant. But what's really happening? It's like a supercomputer is running in your head. You're analyzing the situation, weighing your words, and calculating the consequences, all in a fraction of a second. This analytical mindset also changes how you view the world itself. And that's sign number 7. You just can't stand the phrase, because that's how we've always done it. It drives you crazy. You're always questioning systems, not to be difficult, but because you genuinely see ways to make things better, more logical, or more fair. And that brings us to our final sign, number 8. And it's a big one. It's a core value. You value truth over popularity. You would rather be honest and authentic than just go along with the crowd to be liked. And that commitment to the truth, well, it can definitely make some people uncomfortable. So when you put all of these signs together, a really clear picture starts to emerge, doesn't it? It's not about being difficult or too much. It's just a deeper way of experiencing the world. So the real question isn't, what's wrong with me, but rather, how do I protect this unique mind I have? So let's do a quick recap. It all starts inside, right? With that hyperconnectivity that makes you overthink, that emotional intelligence that lets you read between the lines, and that metacognition that makes you your own biggest critic. Then, that internal wiring shapes how you interact with the world. You enjoy solitude, you struggle with small talk, and you think before speaking. And finally, it all comes down to your core values. You challenge the way things are done, and you always value truth over just being popular. See? They're not just random quirks. They're all pieces of the same puzzle. And here's the most important thing to take away from all this. If any of this sounded like you, please know that your way of thinking is not a burden. It is an incredibly rare and valuable asset. So the question I want to leave you with is a simple one. Now that you know how valuable it is, how are you going to protect it?